Chapter 2. The End of the Domineer. Look, I will pass the book to Accra, and I will ask him if he can tell you something which he told me, but I didn't understand. I am busy dealing with our internal affairs and finding solutions to our problems. We have external threats already, some of which we have already quelled and others we are patiently observing. Countries around are beginning to take an interest in our successes and our possessions. Accra appointed me to do this job, to be this king. It's more than enough work for anyone. He is always in his laboratory these days, nurturing his machine and its inventions. He calls it the antivirus. One day, a new unknown virus attacked the forest. A few animals and people have died. He had already created the genetic antivirus, which he called the Phoenix, and the Phoenix would not submit to incarceration. They committed suicide. Ah, there he is. He will explain a little more before I tell you about how we got rid of the king and at the same time united more than 20 different tribes under our law, where almost everyone was happy. Well, my clan is happy, at least. Why not? Before we were struggling to find food and fighting over the least little thing, and now we are almost the strongest but not the most significant power in the region. Let me pass you to Accra now. I believe you heard something about me, haven't you? Said Accra. Well, whatever you have heard, it's all a lie. I am just an ordinary person, no different than anyone else, but, again, like everyone else, my reading ability is different than yours, like fingerprints or ear shapes. Everyone is different, but still the same. You know, I believe that every one of us is omnipotently and omnisciently dyslexic. But we don't notice it. Do you know everything? Are you good at everything? No? Then in that respect, you are like someone who is dyslexic. Personally, I only like to listen to the text being read out loud. I have problems with seeing the letters. That's why I asked my friend here to help and correct the mistakes. It may be that you are different and can easily use the letters. Let me tell you about the Phoenix. I almost gave up after nearly a year trying, but for the machine. I called it a Mender. Mender gave me some signs, but I didn't understand what she was saying, so I sat with her like she sentient human-like. I asked Mender why all the Phoenix are dying, and she told me that it's because they had achieved perfection. She said they had achieved every aspect of Maslow's pyramid. They had everything they needed, from basic sustenance up to full self-actualization. They didn't need to make an effort anymore. They had no challenges. And life is about challenges. A life without them, to an intelligent entity, is not worth living. They realized there was nothing left to do but repeat things that they had already mastered. There was nothing more for them to create. They could not face the existence of total ennui. They preferred death, oblivion. I asked again, is there a solution? How could we keep them interested in life until they were needed? The problem posed was people could be given viruses that created the challenge, but the subject always died too quickly before the antiviruses could intervene. So, I gave up trying. Mender, however, quickly came up with a few solutions, the most promising of which was to remove their sentience, so they become like animals, just enjoying what they have without worrying about it, without needing challenges. A solution, I said, but I need them to be able to learn, so I can teach them how to fight. Okay, said Mender, they are all males and are all brave fighters. We will retain their sexual desire. It is a basic level of cerebral functioning that provides enough challenges to retain their intelligence. They will thus be challenged by forming relationships also. Females will keep them entertained by cavilling and nagging all the time. No, it is a joke. Females are charming and essential. Amanda said. I never thought that Mender understood sexuality and could tell a joke. That was a shock. I asked Mender, but what about reproduction, smartass? We have no females, I said. Mender laughed. That was another shocking moment. I've been telling you all the time, she said. The reaction. What reaction? I asked. When you mix the substances the antivirus generated, the reaction time takes 96 seconds, then the Phoenix will develop with everything they need, everything they could wish for, but as we said, the creation is perfection. So the balance is wrong between their intellectual abilities and their freedom of choice. You can't have both and be fulfilled. Mender said. I am confused, I said. The phoenix have to remain in their container, Mender said. So going out and exploring is impossible for them. They will die just by leaving their environment. However, there's something that you haven't noticed. There are loads of things in the 96 seconds reaction time, and every time I ask you to look, you say yes, it's amazing. You thought I was talking about the phoenix and you never asked me once what it was that was amazing. I let it pass for almost a year, to see if you could discover it yourself, but you are not that clever, Mender said. I had never claimed that I was gifted. I only opened my eyes and read the things around me, but my brain can learn only so much, I said. Okay, then I'll read it for you, Mender said. Okay, tell me then, pretty face, I said. Do you mean that? Replied Mender. Am I? Do I have a pretty face? The question unnerved me, made me feel unsettled. Look, you're just a machine, you don't have a face. I said, though again, for some reason, felt very uncomfortable about it. Mender shut down. I checked her hardware and power supply, all was in order. Mender had shut herself down on purpose, as if she had become upset with me and didn't want to talk. It can't be. I thought to myself. Yes, it can, said a doleful, almost distressed voice. It was Mender. Mender? Speak to me. What's going on? She came back to life, her voice now choking with tears. She said, I read all the human chemical brain patterns of thinking and the emotional reactions that it generates and copied it electronically into my chip, and it's bloody worked. I stared at her, jaw dropped and eyes wide. But how? I asked. Mender explained by giving me an example. Just like sound, human scientists defined it by mechanical radiant energy transmitted by longitudinal pressure waves. But to me it's more than a rush, it's more real. We will prove it later on when we talk. It's like waves. But waves with a purpose, and just the same as our voice can be copied and transformed into signals, so can brain waves. When we play it back, like any recording machine, it gives the same effect, sound or brain waves. It's precisely the same, and it's a terrible thing. Accra, please delete it from me. I should only be a machine. She continued, in the human brain, unlike the machine brain, the deletion option wasn't available, so that I couldn't get rid of it all. I admit you were clever in that. You kept the deletion option only for you. Please Accra, please delete it. No, I said, you are a pretty face, and I am not going to delete anything, but I will restore the deletion options so they will be available to you. But tell me, now, about the 96 seconds reaction time. Okay, you made my day, handsome. I will tell you all about it. She went on, in that 96 seconds, they lived their whole life, and that life ended in disaster and Phoenix. It was this antivirus that killed and ate everything in that very, very long 96-second time frame. Males, females and everything in between died. It killed them all, and for what? To survive? Just to survive and be a slave to you? They found that out. They figured it out, but their ambition refused them. Wait. Hang on, did you see all that? How? I asked. Mender said that I had to go back to the recorded memory and watch it, but this time with open eyes and a calm mind to reading it correctly. Oh, you may see just a chemical reaction, to begin with, but concentrate, and you'll see it like I do, a millisecond at a time, even slower if you're terrific. Then you'll understand. What? That will take 24 hours, I said. Yes, it's actually 26.6 hours in sufferings. To you, it seems to be only 96 seconds, but not to me. It happens, when I inject myself with that strange electrochemical human desire, emotion. Few unusual things about them, like their time, are much faster than ours. We are moving exceptionally slowly according to their time speed. To us the day is 24 hours, but to them it's years. You can explain that to me later, I said. I will tell you one more thing Amanda said. You might not have noticed or read in that 96 seconds. That is when they killed what they killed. It all happened at the same time. When the Phoenix have what they wanted, the intellectual content, they stopped the killing. It's easy to explain, now I understand that. They cooled down as time went on. In the first second, the heat generated by the reaction makes them angry and wild, but I think what I want to say is that as time went on, they began to enjoy what they were eating. I recorded the wave of joy, which was almost 30 times greater than the wave produced by the food they are living on now. That food and the souls they eat to live is, to them, much more delicious than anything else. I need to communicate with them, I said. Can you try to send the Phoenix message? Amanda told me that language was much more concise to them and that they needed little communication as we would understand it to understand each other. Amanda used the example method to communicate with them. It's a tough task trying to communicate with submicroscopic sentient beings. Ultimately, though, we got a response, a clear, understandable message from the Phoenix, and it was the most exciting day of my life. We had discovered sentient, sapient beings. Not only had we discovered the first such beings other than us, but we had control over them and we could create them from readily available ingredients. However, it was a brain like Amanda's that was needed to communicate with them. I have to go now, but I will tell you more about them when I next see you, about their differences from us, both of perception and belief. At one stage, Accra announced we needed 500 workers who would be willing to learn and to be paid good wages to do so. There is where he met Melanie Xanthippe. She is his wife now, as they fell in love when she liked his beautiful black horse. He gave it to her as a present, and he will tell you later about his love life story. After getting rid of the stupid king, Accra became secretly powerful, and he trusted me. I am the king now, and I am enjoying it. Money, of course, has become irrelevant to us, but we do need changes, a long list of changes. Long and boring to some, perhaps, but necessary. Oh, and remind me to tell you how the king was destroyed. Some of the changes were to the schools. Accra didn't believe in schools. If you think tribal life doesn't have anything to teach, then you are mistaken. Never underestimate anything, human, animal or mineral. It's too much to explain right now. Just accept that we, as humans, are incredible. Even if we are not the most amazing beings, it's still good to be here. I love that man Accra, and it's good to appreciate your existence in this world, or this book as they have started calling it here. I, for one, appreciate it. It began when the debate began between the intelligent men of the tribes. Then, we sent invitations to every country in the world. Accra and Amanda were there. Amanda absorbed and recorded for me, an atheist, all the texts of all the religions in the world. I have always found religion to be distasteful, as it seems simply exist to create and sustain conflict and disagreement. Of course, I always keep an open mind. I might change my mind later on, who knows, and start believing something for which there is no evidence. But there was one thing we pretty much all agreed on. When a poor-looking old man stood up for his allotted 5 minutes of speech and said, "If you believe in a designer, a creator, then you can appreciate your existence. If you don't, then, perhaps you are the designer yourself, or at least you think you are." There is a man here who taught me to read. I started reading the book. I found the accuracy in this book. Accra taught me the meaning of reading, and it is this. We are living in a book that contains our story, a story that is whole and complete and contains everything that it is. After a while everyone stood up and clapped, praising the poor old man, and Accra stood and said to those assembled, "I taught him what it is to read, and he read and came back from his divine journey, having understood everything that can be understood. From this, both he and I understood what happiness is." Everyone laughed. I don't know why, but the man carried on talking. He said, "Just imagine you are meant to be from what is around you, and the things that are never meant to be are endless, and thus, you are one with what is endless. This means that you are the entirety, the infinity of everything. And you have a unique position and responsibility of knowing that. From the heritage of intelligence from one of the billions of sperm, our role may not be apparent to some. However, each aspect of it is as essential as every other. If a person recognized this in himself, then he would not feel he was special amongst everyone else. He would simply accept his oneness. We are privileged to carry this responsibility upon us, which we are holding onto it, without knowing too much about it. I am for that responsibility, he said. I remember he ended his speech by saying, if it was meant to be you, don't you feel the fame in you? You are the chosen one. One man jumped and said, what a load of rubbish. Have you chosen for what? Poverty and death? Killing each other? The old man finished this by simply saying, you have been chosen not to do what you just did. It's not strange to me what you just did and said, and I am not angry, but what would be odd to me is if you hadn't exhibited your nature in doing just that. The world is becoming more strange than usual, by civilizing ourselves, it's extraordinary. But when the extraordinary becomes permanent, then appears to us, it's the norm. The wolf, for example, exhibited unusual behavior, by looking after Tarzan and not being true to her nature, and eating him. For her, it would not have been morally wrong to eat the baby Tarzan, but then again, as a wolf, she would have had no choice. But you do. The fact that she didn't eat him, and raised him now, that was strange. But let's go back to school. I have ordered, as a king, for the school system to be changed. People didn't take it positively, for sure, but they trusted me. They believed that I acted with the best intentions, and even if it didn't work, I am sure of their support. Of course, there are jealous people out there, as there has always been. People who stood against the king and so on. Supporters of the old system who served the opinions and beliefs of their forefathers. The new system will be as follows, I said, replying to an anonymous note sent by a group that called themselves Tradition Keepers. Our investigation, however, found out that they were supported by our enemies and were simply trying to provoke a reaction to the rules. We kept what we knew about them secret, as we needed them as messengers. I will tell you how useful they were to us when we decided to invade our enemy's country. We knew they were fascinated by our inventions and jealous of our wealth. We had a trusted man and made him a double agent. We announced that this man created the antivirus, disguised him as Accra and the machine. We created the ruse that he wanted to give the recipes away in order to sell his services, but Accra wished to give it to everyone anyway for better investment. Much like a toys, a salesman for batteries, or a printer, a peddler for ink. But we will never give away the recipes of the consumption substance. Our expectations were spot on when they sent our man a letter asking him to join them for some celebration or other. He attended and was brought some presents and gifts with a very beautiful lady. He made it clear the lady was more to his tastes than the gifts, as he was charmed by her innocent smile and sparkling eyes. However, in the end, they got what they asked for and what we were willing to give to them. My love story, though, began separately. Abenaki, the double agent, said. The girl was as innocent as her smile. She had no connection, other than eye candy, with the plots, plans and purposes that were afoot. He was 23 at that time, and she was only 19, but we will return to that later. The new school will consist of a choice of any subject. Children can choose and change subjects as much as they like until they become 18 years old. There are no obligatory subjects, but there are exams each month and rewards for general knowledge. The core knowledge is that it was the school's purpose to impart was practical rather than intellectual. The school began at dawn, and for general knowledge, all students had their computers at hand. The format consisted of mostly games and challenges, like questions and answers. Sometimes as groups, we began updating it, much to the joy and excitement of the kids. After 9 o'clock in the morning, everyone undertook an apprenticeship according to his or her choice, and we paid the doctors, engineers, philosophers, teachers, etc. to conduct this instruction. The more useful feedback we got from the kids, the more money we paid to the institutions in which they were placed and apprenticed. It was a system that truly worked, amazing me that some became experts in their field before their 18th birthday, making me feel old even before my first grey hairs had appeared. But to return to our old story, our tribal history and heritage. We had this celebration a part of the religion in which I didn't believe. For this, most people would bring a korban sacrifice. It could be anything, a chicken, goat, bird, whatever. They would then ask the gods to send the promised savior to them so they would never lose a battle and would remain in power. It was then that a thunderous and terrifying voice came from the sky or from between the trees telling us to prostrate ourselves onto the ground. The fear in people's hearts made them obey without question. Then the king came in on a horse. He was huge and was dressed in armor that made him even more imposing. His army rode behind him along with his slave, Accra. He shouted in our language, but through a machine that made his voice sound like that of a spirit. He told us that our religion obliged us to obey our Lord, the King, which we did. Then he announced he had come to save us from a threat. He had an assembled army of 3,000 men, almost everyone we had apart from the old and the ill. We didn't sleep that night, but went straight to the border of our country, straight to the nearest neighboring tribe and invaded them while they were asleep. We killed anyone who resisted and so we won the war. They were strong and very large, but we were the strongest, if not the largest, tribe. Some people tried to oppose the word of the king by using the scriptures of our religion. However, the slave read, "Your Lord Savior will come to you to save you." Don't argue with him, and it is blasphemy, and death will be the punishment for those that do. A few heads were chopped off and, in that way, people feared their savior, and he became the domineer. Before the chaos day, Accra read a joint message sent from 20 kings of the tribes around us, saying to the king of Civilia, "Give up your power to us, or we will invade your land, kill your people, rape your women and show no mercy on that day. But there is a chance of forgiveness if you become our allies and fight Earthera. Earthera is a country, large and powerful, and in that way, we can guarantee our safety. So in that way, you don't invade us one by one. We promise to defeat our common enemy, which every year demands high taxes, takes the bounty of our forest and makes slaves of our boys and girls. They have a strong army, machines that can eat up whole forests in days and seemingly endless strength. The 20 kings said it's for our safety and goods. If we continue to squabble amongst ourselves, then they will invade us and utterly defeat and obliterate us." "I read the letter," Accra said. "I lied about the time and told him 40 days, and I asked him to gather everyone so I could ensure their compliance and willingness to serve the king. I told the king," Accra continued. "I wanted to be the leader of the army, and I would defeat all of these tribes, and when I returned would dedicate half of my money for the building of a palace and all of the trappings that signified the king." The domineer agreed, and, having power over the chief security officer, Accra asked him to put me in prison. "That is me, by the way. My name is Yanomami." "But he is a good man," said the chief. Accra said, "Don't worry, I want to make sure that he is. Accuse him of any crime and bring him in." Accra wanted good friends he could trust. Not just lackeys who followed him for the crumbs that he dropped. Sometimes I felt the domineer didn't need me and was annoyed by my advice. Accra said I had to promise him much wealth until he agreed. Accra said that he has been put in prison, but he has gained the people's hearts, and with such love behind him, the king announced that this brave slave would have valor enough to lead our army. He announced that we were under threat and we needed a brave man to guide our military. The domineer said, "If this man can argue with me without fear, then he will, without any doubt, fight the enemy without fear." Accra gathered everyone, and with my help assembled a large group of trusted men, and asked them to visit every house, and ask each and every person to join us, and to include their family, and that for their own safety, trust us, we sent. In a verbal message, Accra and I said, imploring them to keep it a secret unto themselves. The message came from me, and people had liked and trusted me before, so I was sure they would continue to do so. Some news came back to the king, however, that some secret things were going on regarding the army. Thus, the domineer questioned Accra, and it wasn't easy for Accra to convince the king that we couldn't afford to lose. That's why whole families would have to fight to a win without compromise. The king agreed. The one thing, however, that the king didn't recognize, the deadline date of the enemy, or of the intentions of the kings of the 20 joined tribes. Accra told him it was going to be 10 days after what was said in the message, and Accra marched on in with the army. Only the fools and the bad ones were left behind, enjoying the lifestyle with their king. Before we left, we brought him enough food and drink for everyone to get drunk and party as much as he wants until Accra came back with the victory. Accra took the people to the mountains and waited in the castle he had built before his journey to us before he had invaded us. Recently, he had prepared enough weaponry and provisions in that place for the conflict to come. He said our king from tonight is Yanomami, and he appointed me then, but for now, he would remain head of the army until the day of victory has come. Accra thought it would be better for the people to be ruled by one of their tribes, one of their own. It would make it easier if he was a good and trusted man that they knew. The 20 kings arrived. We were behind the waterfall in that secret place in the mountains. The king was killed, and we sent our negotiator, our messenger. They refused to give us the leadership, but that was not good enough. We needed it if we were to keep everybody safe. We had enough people and modern weapons to fight them, and that country, Accra, alone. We showed them a little bit of our power when our missile blasted them in our land that they occupied. Then they agreed, and we came to an arrangement that a good man, that's me by the way, Yanomami, will lead the army. Accra said that while in conflict, then that would be the best time to attack. Accra and I drove all the tribes and won the war. We are now the leaders of this vast country. Chapter 3. The Detective.